Hello there, and welcome to another episode of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring podcast, with your host, Gadian. That's me! Last episode was incredibly short for what this podcast is usually like, I'm aware, but fret not. This time, we can dive deep into many different aspects of the world's history, miniature cities, and epic orchestral music. And the plot finally kicks into gear. We begin at minute 30 with Gandalf's serious thinking expression while smoking a pipe, and end at minute 35 with Sam holding a pipe, looking at it almost fondly. Did he steal it from Gandalf? Is he missing the old grey wizard? And why does he look so cute and adorable in this shot? Questions upon question that we might get the answers later on today. Gandalf is sitting in front of the fireplace and mumbles riddles in the dark. Now, that can simply be something one mutters when you're thinking about a mystery, similar to what Gandalf is doing here. However, what it is much more likely to be, obviously, because, what else could it be, is a reference to a chapter in The Hobbit, chapter 5 to be exact, which has the very same title, Riddles in the Dark. It is the chapter in which Bilbo meets Gollum in his cave. There they have a riddles contest, in which, if Bilbo wins, he gets to leave, and if Gollum wins, he gets to eat him. Very fair trade. Bilbo has most likely told the story to Gandalf several times, or at least once, since the wizard knows of how Bilbo got the ring, because he knows of Gollum, and the Hobbit probably dubbed it himself Riddles in the Dark, because remember, he is writing a book about his adventures, which would include Gollum's cave too, so it makes sense that he'd given it a fitting title. And now that Gandalf is pondering over what exactly this ring is, he thinks back on the time Bilbo got the ring, and from whom and how, well, through riddles in the dark. But what were these riddles, you might wonder? Don't you worry, dear listener, I've got you. Let's jump right back into The Hobbit. I mean the book, okay? I'm not talking about Bilbo Baggins, alright? I'm talking about the book, okay? Transition time! Now, here we are. Gollum makes the start with this one. What has roots as nobody sees, is taller than trees. Up, up, up it goes, and yet never grows. Let me give you a little moment to think about it yourself. For the few who are not Tolkien obsessed and know most, if not all, little details, including the riddles of the cave, take your time. Lock your answer? Alright, exactly, well done. The answer, of course, is mountain. Bilbo then goes next with this one. 30 white horses on a red hill. First they champ, then they stamp, then they stand still. The answer to this one is teeth. To which Gollum laughs because he doesn't have 30 teeth anymore, he only has 6. In the book, at least. In the Hobbit movies, he has 9. Is that a reference to the 9 Nazgul that are after the One Ring, which is in Gollum's possession? And if that's the case, what does Gollum then goes next and says this riddle? Voiceless it cries, wingless flutters, toothless bites, mouthless mutters. I like this one. This one I never struggled with, unlike the teeth one when I first read it. Most descriptions of the answer to that one always mention it whispering or biting at someone. It is the wind, of course. And Bilbo gives his next riddle. An eye in a blue face, so an eye in a green face. That eye is like to this eye, said the first eye, but in low place, not in high place. This one is a bit more complex. Technically, it still follows the same riddle structures as the ones before. However, this time the answer is not a single thing like it has been before, but something that interacts a certain way with another thing. However, Gollum figures this one out. I never could. When I read the book the first time, I just thought, what the hell is this? And the answer is a sun shining on daisies. Then we get Gollum's next riddle. It cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be heard, cannot be smelt. It lies behind stars and under hills, and empty holes it fills. It comes first and follows after, ends life, kills laughter. This one is easy when you pay attention to lies behind stars and under hills, and Bilbo, after some time, figures it out as well. Darkness. Then we get an easy one from Bilbo because he gets more and more nervous as time goes on in that cave. And it goes, a box without hinges, key or lid. Yet golden treasure inside is hid. Gollum figures this one out fairly quickly, so did I when I read it the first time, and of course it's an egg. Next we get Gollum's favourite food in form of this riddle. Alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsty, ever drinking, all in male, never clinking. Can you get it? Yeah, of course. It's a fish. A gross, wriggly, raw fish. Then Bilbo does his weirdest one yet, in my opinion. No legs lay on one leg. 2 legs sat near on 3 legs. 4 legs got some. Apparently, it's a common one in English, but since English is not my mother tongue, I did not understand it or recognize it the first time I read it. There is a similar one in German, talking about a man that goes through life, but again, it's just a person and not a scene as described here. However, Gollum, though, has no problem figuring it out. It is a fish on a little one-legged table, a man at the table sitting on a 3-legged stool, and the cat gets the bones. Okay, I have to say, for someone who has spent several hundred years in complete isolation, I am madly impressed that Gollum first knows and remembers riddles and can figure them out in relatively quick fashion. I would be there for hours and probably get eaten by the thing. Here. Then we come to Gollum's final riddle. This thing all things devours. Birds, beasts, trees, flowers. Gnaws iron, bites steel, grinds heart, stones to meal. Slays kings, ruins town, and beats high mountain down. Bilbo sort of struggles with this one in the book. I don't know his problem. It's super obvious and easy. Obviously, it's like not a guy like on the table with a chair and a fish and a cat. Bilbo, it's embarrassing. But he figures it out before Gollum guts him with impatience. The answer is time. And then we get to the final riddle of the chapter, which was not intended to be a riddle. Bilbo mumbled it while thinking of a good one, and he simply said, "What have I got in my pocket?" But since Gollum had said, "Ask me a question," in impatience and not "ask me a riddle," Bilbo technically did as instructed, even though it wasn't his intent. No matter, Gollum answers 3 times, but never rightly guesses what Bilbo has in his pocket. For context, Bilbo had found the ring right before he bumped into Gollum, so the answer there would have been a ring. But Gollum doesn't know that or even suspects it because he still assumes he has the ring in his own possession, which he wanted to use on Bilbo anyway, regardless if the Hobbit won the riddles or not. So he's a filthy cheat and you can't trust him in any way. Well, at least not fully. I could go into more details what happens after and how Bilbo manages to escape, but, that has nothing to do with the scene at hand in the movie currently. The movie, of which maybe just 4 seconds have passed by now. Yeah, I can see this one is going to be a long one. Right after Gandalf mumbles his Hobbit reference, we hear a voice call out for Bilbo. It is Frodo who opens the door and almost jumps in. But he just so happens to land right before the one ring that is still there on the floor. I wonder how many times it took for Elijah Wood to not step on the thing during rehearsals. Frodo looks down and sees the ring, which is easy to spot among the dirt and dust that gathers on the floor. And as he picks it up like it's nothing, Gandalf mumbles, "A precious," and the music of the One Ring comes in with the alluring string. And oh my god, I love shit like this. The ring is held, mentioned in a different name, and boom, the music links it all together. Remember, Sauron's original name was Mairon, which translates to the Admirable One, or the Precious One. And he is a trickster and deceiver, and the music sounds so secretive but alluring and deceiving, and oh my god! I love Howard Shore. I love you, sir! Frodo turns and seems not at all surprised that Gandalf is here. He doesn't shrug or twitch in surprise. He sees the wizard and immediately asks if Bilbo has truly left. When Frodo speaks, Gandalf's eyes look to his left, even though Frodo is standing behind him on his right. Why does he do that? Wouldn't it make more sense to look to his right since the voice comes from there? From what I can tell, there might be 2 reasons as to why he doesn't look the right way to Frodo. The first might be that he simply doesn't register Frodo, so lost in thought and memory that he looks away from the fire to organize his thoughts. I mean, we do that too in real life, or at least I do that as well. There have been theories that when someone tries to remember something or reminisces on past events, their eyes will do certain movements. According to GazePoint.com, a Canadian IT company that specializes on eye tracking systems for computer, states, looking to the left while thinking can indicate that a person is either reminiscing or trying to remember something, since looking to the right while thinking typically indicates creative thoughts. However, someone who is left-handed will likely reverse these eye direction indicators. Ah, alright. So if that has some truth to it, then it fits really well here. Gandalf looks to the left because he's trying to remember something or figure something out. And since he is right-handed, at least in the films, it's never clearly stated in the books, he would look to his left if he were trying to recall something. So that is one theory. Gandalf is trying to remember something, and that's why he looks to his left and not to Frodo, who is on his right. The other theory I have is far simpler and doesn't involve a Canadian IT company for backup. We see that there is a wall next to Gandalf on his right, so it would make sense that he'd anticipate Frodo more on his left, since that's where Frodo could potentially approach him far easier. That's why he's looking to his left, because there is no wall, and Frodo would mostly come to him on that side. And Frodo proves one of my theories right. As he talks about how often he had heard Bilbo say that he wanted to leave the Shire, he slowly approaches, and he approaches him on Gandalf's left, away from the wall. But still, Gandalf doesn't turn or acknowledge Frodo at all at first. It's only when Frodo stands right next to him and calls out to him that he slowly turns. His eyes fall onto the ring first, which Frodo is holding in an open hand, and what the fuck, Frodo, how are you holding this thing? I get it that this is a pretty golden ring and it belonged to your uncle, but any other person, and by that I mean me, would have simply picked it up and put it into my pocket. Why are you holding it like that? It almost feels like you were instructed by someone to hold it in this unnatural fashion, so that the ring would be nicely presentable for a camera, so that an audience could look upon the ring even more. Maybe. Just maybe. We zoom in close on the ring in Frodo's hand, the fire flickering in the fireplace and slightly reflecting on the ring's surface. The melody of the ring still plays, a little gentler though than before. Gandalf then changes his expression from serious overthinker to warm and gentle. It's a kind smile that reaches his eyes. Bilbo's ring, he states the obvious. Though I'm not sure if it would have been for Frodo, given that Bilbo was pretty possessive over it. Then again, in the books, Frodo knows about the magic ring of Bilbo's adventure. In the books, he never finds it on the floor, by the way. He gets it in an envelope that is given to him by Gandalf, but he doesn't open it until much later. But I assume film Frodo would also know about the ring, given that Bilbo would talk about his adventures with the dwarves while writing his book. We cut to a very questioning and uncertain look of Frodo, which makes sense. His guardian figure has just left, like a dad going out for milk. And now he's all alone here. I'd be looking like that too. Gandalf explains that Bilbo has gone to stay with the elves, and that he has left Frodo basically everything, Bagan and all other possessions. He says this while holding up an empty but open, small envelope. I don't know what you would do if you were presented such an envelope. I would probably just take it and hold on to it. But Frodo knows exactly what is required of him, and he gently puts the ring into the envelope. And interestingly enough, as Frodo does this, the music swells for a moment, and then almost entirely fades away, as if concealing the ring like this could ward off its influence or whatever. Gandalf quickly takes it back, closes it, and then seals it. With wax. And everything. Do the Bagginses have a sigil? Do they stamp their letters like this? This seems such overkill and nobility thing to do. I thought the Tooks were the rich people here. Well, then again, the Baggins are part Took, so maybe that's why. And also Bilbo is filthy rich because of his adventure with the dwarves, so maybe he got one after that? There are signet rings and stamps for Bilbo Baggins, but those are licensed The Hobbit Trilogy merchandise and not Tolkien-described objects. Fun fact, the earliest wax seal can be traced back to Mesopotamia in 3500 BC. Holy crap, that's long ago. They were used as a safety and legitimacy thing. We have passwords and IDs today, but back then you had one of these to prove that you were who you were when sending a letter. Anyone can fake a letter. Well, not then, because not everybody could read or write. But anyway, faking a unique seal, that was hard to do. Seals indicated both veracity and security. Though the use of normal seals lessened and almost entirely disappeared after the Roman Empire fell, the signet rings, which were wax seals but also rings, really became popular after the Roman Empire had fallen. During the Middle Ages, signet rings changed to take on the looks of heraldry and coats of arms. Instead of a simple stamp or symbol, it was now an intricate design that clearly showed which family this signet ring belonged to. Those are the ones I am mostly familiar with because I love Renaissance fairs and binge stuff like Bridgerton. But during the Victorian era, an era in which Tolkien lived in, the fob was a popular thing to carry around. It essentially was a wax seal that would hang off a watch chain or something of the sorts. That way, people could easily seal documents, since signet rings were something mostly noble and rich families had, so that way even commoners could seal their letters. Such a fob might be used right here, though I have no idea how one would put that onto a chain. Then again, Gandalf holds it in a way that we can't see the handle part of it, so there might be a hole for the chain there. Gandalf whispers that Frodo should keep it out of sight, and then we cut to him walking through the hobbit's home, holding onto every ceiling so he doesn't hit his head again, which is fair, that probably hurts a lot. Frodo is following Gandalf, asking where he's going and what's going on. Gandalf, the ever so precise answer giver, replies, "I must see to some questions that need answering." Okay, thank you, Gandalf, for not explaining anything to Frodo, who now might be in the possession of the most dangerous artifact in all of Middle-earth. I thought I'd just mention it again, you old wizard. When Frodo says he doesn't understand, Gandalf finally turns around. Perfectly so his eyes can look through the wooden chandelier, which would cause him concussions on the regular, I believe. It swings gently back and forth. How nice! Except that makes absolutely no sense. One angle before, when Gandalf walks away from Frodo, we see him passing this chandelier thing, and he does so not touching it. He doesn't even graze it, so it wouldn't swing in any way. And when we cut around and see Gandalf from the front, we see how the candles are already slightly swinging. But how are they doing that? Swinging, I mean, if you already passed them. Grand Major? I have spotted another inconsistency in the film, Grand Major. I shall remember this and add it to your files. But from a scenic sense, I understand, because if Gandalf would look through the static chandelier, the scene might lose the momentum of this sudden change of pace. From Gandalf sitting to Gandalf now super eager to get out and figure things out away from here, a moving chandelier fits better with now the plot moving, unlike a static one. Gandalf says he also doesn't understand, then goes back to Frodo, leans down, tells us in a very neat close-up shot to keep it secret, keep it safe. Then he leaves, closes the door behind him, and we cut back to Frodo, who looks at the envelope with the ring inside, probably thinking, what the fuck is he on about? We zoom in closer onto the envelope and we hear the music of the One Ring swell louder and louder, and before we hit the epicness and crescendo of the tune, I must talk about how nice this envelope looks. No, please, not the paper, no! You can see that it is not smooth but has a roughish kind of surface. You see the fiber here and there peering through the light, and it's not white paper but beige yellowish. Back in the day, paper wasn't smooth as we have it today, and it was a massive process to make it. Which makes me wonder, does the Shire have its own parchment production site, or do they get their paper from Bray? But if they have one, where would that be? And wouldn't that go against the Hobbit lifestyle? A life away from industrialization. But then again, if you make the paper yourself, the old-fashioned way, that's just massively time-consuming. Cut. The music swells, and we are now in a dark land with a volcano in the back. The land is dark, and it seems all in all dreadful. We see the spiky top of a tower come into view, and the loud thunder of fire and earth can be heard in the close distance. We are, of course, in Mordor, the land where the shadows lie. Mordor, as we've seen before, is in the southeast and surrounded by massive mountain chains. The reason as to why it is known as the land where the shadows lie are both natural and magical. Mount Doom, originally called Orodruin in Sindarin, was created by Melkor, you know, bad boy number one, and master to Sauron during the First Age. This is why Sauron settled there in the first place later in the Second Age, because the fire that Mount Doom brought forth was from the earth itself, and so he could use it for his own magic and forgings to then influence the earth as well. Anyway, the smoke which the volcano produces, Sauron uses to cover Mordor in endless shadow, but also other magic and spells and such prevent any sunlight to really pierce through the dark clouds. So the title of Shadowland is incredibly fitting. We move around the tower peak. Many long roads come into view which seem to stretch endlessly in this land. We see small figures moving about, then roads alit with thousands of torches they are holding. We move above the tower peak and see lava pouring down a chasm. There, deep below, lava is pooling around the great and massive structure. We then move further away from the tower we had focused on before, and if you thought that tower looked big, you haven't seen the rest. More and more we move away from the tower, which we now realize was only a lookout tower, and not the main building in any way. We see scaffolding around a massive structure that looks it was built into and around a massive mountain. We hear hammers hitting and more torches lit all around the massive structure we see now. And it is massive. It seems to stretch forever into a black sky. We hear a horrible scream coming from somewhere deep within the fortress. We'll get to that in a moment, don't worry. But first, where are we exactly, and what are we even looking at? This is Barad-Dur, the main fortress of Sauron in the process of being rebuilt. During the Battle of the Lost Alliance, we have seen in the prologue, most of Barad-Dur had been destroyed. But give a few thousand years and you'll eventually have a new one. It's like a weed. Since this movie came out in 2001, CGI and all the sorts was pretty much underdeveloped. So to compensate for that, you used a lot of real things. Like this. This here, right now, is a real thing. This is a model that you could physically touch, created by the amazing and talented people at Weta Workshop. Weta Workshop was founded in 1987 and is a New Zealand creative company which created pretty much every model for the great castles and cities you see in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. They also made armor and all the other sorts, like everything that is a prop, they made. Also, fun fact, the company is named after one of the largest insects in the world, called Weta, which looks like an ant on both steroids and crack. This is nothing I want to find in my room alone at night. I don't even want my cats to touch this thing. There. This here before us is what Weta calls a Bigature, which is a clever nickname for a big miniature model. They created several of those for the trilogy. 11 in total, and sometimes different parts and angles of the same one. So when I say 11 Bigatures, then that's just 11 sets, not pieces alone. Right now we see a model of Barad-Dur which is 27 feet tall. For every non-American like myself, that is 8.2 meters. That is almost as tall as the highest point of the jumping tower at my local swimming pool. Look at these pictures, look at them, really. There is a guy standing inside the model and you only see the upper part of his torso. Heck, he fits in there several times over if he wanted to, and had space for a fridge. And that's the base. Only the base. Look at this. Another guy is standing next to it, and he is not even half as tall. It is said that the scale is 1 to 66, meaning the real live tower were around 5,000 feet tall. Why do you empiric freaks love feet that much? That is around 1.5 kilometers high. That is insane. Just, like, I knew it was tall, like in the books as well, it's described as massively tall. But to put it into actual numbers, that's insane. Now, of course, the torches and lights on there are mostly CGI and added in after the fact, which makes sense, but the scale and the weight of this tower really comes across naturally, because it is a heavy thing, quite literally. Now, Barad-Dur is the stronghold and headquarters for Sauron. The name Barad-Dur is 2 words, which literally translates to fortress, or tower, and dark, or evil. You will see a common thing among many things that are bases or stations of Sauron. By that I mean they lack subtlety. Or nuance. For example, in Mirkwood, Mirk being the word dark, again, originally it was called Greenwood, but then Sauron moved in, so it was, Mirkwood. There is a place called Dol Guldur, which is a fortress that was held by Sauron before he returned to Mordor before the Fellowship happens. Dol means hill, because that fortress lies on a hill, and Guldur can be translated as dark sorcery, because there is this Dur, again, Barad-Dur, Dol Guldur. So literally it means hill of the dark sorcerer, or hill sorcerer dark. Yeah, I can see a theme now. So, Barad-Dur is the fortress of darkness and the Sauron central stronghold. However, we don't see the top of this tower yet, which is a shame because there we would see a blazing fire eye, the same we've seen in the last episode. Maybe Sauron is taking a nap. Who knows? I know that the fire eye is a movie thing and not really a book thing when it comes to Sauron's new form, but we are looking at the movie here, okay? I get to ask where the big eye is. Terrible screams are heard in the depths of Barad-Dur. We don't see who that voice belongs to, nor why these screams are happening, but we hear 2 words, clearly. Shire and Baggins. It's of course Gollum, who has been captured by the dark forces of Sauron and is being tortured in the dungeons of Barad-Dur. But why? I can't imagine Sauron knowing Gollum lived in the Misty Mountains, that he had the ring for some 100 years, or sending forces there to retrieve him. Thankfully, I don't have to imagine anything, since that's not what happened. You see, Gollum, at least in the books, is drawn to Mordor because the ring has left such an imprint on him that he seeks a power akin to it. And since it was made in Mordor and Sauron lives there, who is the creator, he naturally, or more unnaturally, is pulled towards Mordor. However, while he was sneaking around, he was found and captured by Sauron's forces and put into the dungeons for questioning. Because if you find a weird-looking creature that doesn't belong to your forces, you'll assume that it's a spy from the enemies. However, they, and by they I mean the Nazgul, probably recognized the imprint or mark of the One Ring on Gollum, so they began their questioning for that. Okay, that explains why he's here and why he's getting questioned, but it doesn't explain how he knows of Bilbo and Frodo's last name, or even their home. I hear you cry in question marks. Well, don't worry. In The Hobbit, Bilbo does the stupid thing of introducing himself with his full name. He doesn't say where he's from, but when Gollum leaves his cave and simply listens to the people of the Dale, an area Bilbo had at least a small influence in, he picked up the term Shire and would then associate it with the thief who had taken his precious. So there, that's why Gollum knows both the terms Baggins and Shire in association with the thief who has stolen his ring, and why he's even here in the first place. Good. Or less good, because right after he screams those words, we see Mount Doom erupt as if it were responding to what the prisoner was revealing, and we see just how dark and grey Mordor truly is. There are no fields, no grass, only a wasteland of stone and ash. The earth is cracked, and we see golden molten light, lava coursing through beneath the land. This is the polar opposite to what we have seen before. The Shire is green, fruitful, full of life and light, and this place in turn is just dark, desolate, and lifeless. We then cut to a green castle/city entrance gate. It swings open and we see black figures on horses ride out to the epic choirs singing. This is of course the gate to Minas Morgul, that lies in the Morgul Vale. What does Morgul mean? Exactly, it means dark sorcery or necromancy. Well done, 10 points to Gondor. Minas Morgul is another stronghold of Sauron which didn't always belong to him. Originally it belonged to Gondor and was known as Minas Ithil. So we kept the Minas part but changed the second half. See, Minas Ithil was built to be a watchtower to ensure that forces of Mordor couldn't just waltz into the realm of Gondor. Translated, Minas Ithil means Moon Tower, or Tower of the Moon, because it was built as the twin city to Minas Anor, which translates to Tower of the Sun, or Sun Tower. Minas Anor was later renamed to Minas Tirith. However, in the Third Age, the Tower City fell to Sauron's forces and then was rebranded to Minas Morgul, which means Dark Sorcerer Tower. Yeah, we established that there is no creativity to naming evil dark things. In the books, the city has an unnatural white light coming from it. Here in the movie, it's a green light, which is a change I think approves upon it really. Reading that a white light feels unnatural is easier to feel and imagine than actually see it before you with no wiggle room for perception. Because in real life, a white light is just that, a white light. But add a spooky color to it like the classical Disney villain green, and boom, our brains immediately assume that this is a bad place, with bad things inside, and bad people. Like the Tower of Barad-Dur, this is also a Bigature model by Weta Workshop, and comes up to around 6 feet. That's 182 centimeters tall. That is taller than I am! The scale, according online, is 1 to 120, meaning that the tallest point would stretch up to 220 meters in real life. Minas Tirith is double that. I will talk more about Minas Tirith soon, don't worry. And from that 182 centimeter tall Bigature model, we see several Black Riders come forth. 9 in total. It's the Nazgul. What and who these things are, I will address in another episode. They are riding out to find a place called Shire, because the Shire is not really well known for most people. It's a pretty small area, and only locals, like the people of Bree, will know about it, and they also rarely interact with it regularly. So maybe history buffs, similar to Faramir or Gandalf, will know about it, but yeah, those are rare in Middle-earth. We cut away to see a man on a horse. He passes a small lake? It looks like a lake. He comes to a halt, and in the distance we see a great city bathed in white light, contrast to the dark tower and gate we've seen only a few scenes ago. Further beyond, we see a great mountain chain with dark clouds gathering and orange light flashing behind a wall of stone. It is Gandalf who has come to Gondor for some research. We cut to Gandalf's face, and his expression is a mix of winded and worried, and he has a good reason for that. He just rode all the way from the Shire to Gondor in record time. That takes months, you know? Also, Gandalf, did you leave your card in the Shire? You came with a whole card with a lot of explosives. Did you leave them there, or did you use them all up for Bilbo's birthday party? I mean, the finale was ruined by Pippin and Merry with stealing the dragon firework, and afterwards you kept watch over them, and presumably didn't do any more firework, so where did you put the fireworks, Gandalf? We zoom in on the mountain chain called Efelduath, which are the mountains to the west and south of Mordor. They're also known in the common tongue as Mountains of Shadow. Really? Really? More shadow and darkness and shadow? Okay. Yeah, I'm not expecting any creativity from this guy anymore. At the bottom of the scene, we see a small collection of stones or something, but those aren't stones. No. It's the city of Osgiliath, which is held by Gondor to protect the river crossing from Mordor forces. A lightning flashes across the sky, and that makes Gandalf turn his horse around because there is no time to be wasted. But is that such an odd thing to see? I mean, that's Mordor, for goodness sake. A lightning flashing can't be that special, right? We cut to a beautiful shot of a city bathed in golden and bronze light. The fields outside seem to stretch into an endless horizon of light, and right beside the city we see a great river flowing. That's the Anduin River, one of the great rivers in Middle-earth. Don't worry, I will talk about this watery road in another episode. We see towers with domes as roofs are prevalent, and the entire city is made of white stone. The city is made up of several levels, and we see birds flying between them as if the walls and towers were high as mountains. And that comparison is not stupid, because this is Minas Tirith, the capital of Gondor and built upon and into a great mountain, Mount Mindoluin. Well, it's built at the very end of the mountain, but still, still applies. This beautiful Bigature was of course also created by Weta Workshop and has the wonderful size of 7 meters tall. 7 meters? That is almost as tall as the Barad-Dur Bigature, but this one has a massive circumference as well. Look at this image of 4 guys walking on or around this thing. This dude is on a ladder and it doesn't reach the top at all. They also had another Bigature that was so big that you could walk in it and look into the windows of the houses. That one was used for more detailed shots. We don't see that one here. That's used in the third movie of the trilogy, where we have the Siege of Minas Tirith. But still, this one is also massively incredible nonetheless. I am just so glad they used such practical effects, because 25 years later, and it still looks marvelous and real. And you know why? Because it was a real thing you could touch and interact with, and not a digital generated thing that would age poorly the more technology advanced. Anyway. Minas Tirith is the capital of Gondor and was originally called Minas Anor. It was built to mostly guard the Tomb of Kings that are behind the city. But Minas Anor was not the capital of Gondor, which would have been really confusing, because the twin kingdom to Gondor was Arnor, and to almost name your capital after the neighbor brother nation would have caused an administrative uproar and nightmare, let me tell you. And yes, next to Gondor and Rohan there is another kingdom called Arnor. We never really hear from that in the movies, but in the books it is often mentioned, given that Arnor is the north, where the Shire is and Bree and all that stuff, everything to the western side of the Misty Mountains. Well, not everything, but most things. Anyway, the kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor were ruled not in a capital of each kingdom. No, that would make too much sense. No, they were ruled in the city of Osgiliath. Yeah, that Osgiliath, the little rubble we saw just before, and that we see later in the next film as a ruin. Yeah, that was the main ruling point for both kingdoms. But at the end of the Second Age, Sauron took Minas Ithil. Isildur fled, because that was his seat at the time, to his father in Arnor, while his brother, Anarion, stayed in Osgiliath to defend it and Minas Anor, and later even successfully retook Minas Ithil. What a Chad, honestly. There was a lot of war and battle, and after the Battle of the Last Alliance we saw in the prologue, both Osgiliath and Minas Anor had suffered great losses and destruction, including the death of Anarion. Which is why Isildur planted the white tree in Gondor. You know, like the white tree in Minas Tirith. Yeah, that's him. He planted that to honor his brother. It was in the early Third Age that the 7th king of Gondor, Ostoer, rebuilt Minas Anor and made it a proper city, you know, to live in and not just to guard some dead kings. And from there on out, it was the new seat of kings. Sadly, in the Third Age, in 2002, the Nazgul took Minas Ithil and renamed it to Minas Morgul. Due to that, the people of Gondor then renamed Minas Anor to Minas Tirith, which translates to Tower of God, distancing themselves from the fallen Minas Ithil since they were once sun and moon, and now it's dark magic and Tower God, so they're very distant from each other now. So this is where we are now, the great white city, Minas Tirith. Well, it has seen better days, which is true. The kingdom of Gondor has been in constant decline ever since the Third Age, and waits desperately for the return of the king. See what I did there? Gandalf walks through a hallway? Well, not really. It's an alley with columns on one side and a wall to another. We see some people sitting on benches. I assume they are, otherwise that'd look kinda sad. He takes a turn and walks into an open area where we see many different buildings, tight corners and small stairs. All is made of stone, and only a little greenery breaks the white and rough stone of the city. We cut to a random guy holding a torch with Gandalf behind him. Who are you, man? Well, that's the Gondorian archivist, played by Michael Ellsworth, who apparently also was Cirdan the Shipwright in the prologue of this film. Hey! Welcome back, Michael! I'm not kidding, that's what the internet and other sources tell me. That's Michael Ellsworth. It's the same dude. And as the archivist of Gondor, he leads Gandalf deep, deep into old archives where no other light source exists. Which makes sense. I wouldn't leave a flame here either. Dry paper and loose parchment are a perfect recipe for a fiery disaster. Only a fool of a Baggins would leave so much precious old paper lie around and doom it to a fiery demise. We see towers of old tomes, books and scrolls lined up in what I assume is a vague system of order. I'm pretty sure the archivists know their way around here. Oh yes, this is the pile of the early Second Age. Oh, and this tower of books is the late First Age. And so on. I have that too. Who needs order when you have chaos? Gandalf doesn't need any instructions. He pulls out a stack of papers with dust and spiderwebs and throws them onto a table where the light of the torch hits it nicely. And believe me when I say, I tried to read the first page. I tried, but I can't make out everything, because it's blurry and on the screen for just a frame or two. I can't get a clear image. From what I can read is that those are old records of Numenor, the island kingdom Isildur originally came from. You can read the word Numenor towards the end. It speaks of challenging Sauron and also capturing him. So this is probably around the time when Morgoth had been defeated and Sauron had been taken prisoner by the Númenóreans. And in good Sauron fashion, he corrupted them slowly to worship Morgoth to bring the wrath of literal God upon them and sing their island Atlantis style. But that's a story for another time. So maybe this is a record of what that period was like, of when Númenor was thriving and essentially was one of the great forces of good in the world. And it would make a lot of sense that Gandalf would start there. The origins of Gondor are in Númenor, and the ring is ancient, so it makes sense that he goes as far back as he can in time to find something that is this old. Though the ring is not as old as Númenor, it is not that old. Even though I can't read it completely, and this prop was made not for any viewer to read through, it still took time and massive effort to create such a prop. An actual old parchment written with calligraphy and care that you can read if it weren't blurry or on screen for a few frames. I'm just amazed how much love was poured into these films. Well done, everyone. Honestly, well done. Gandalf is flipping through the pages, smoking a pipe. Of course he is. And we see him throw one stack of parchment onto another, and we see 3 candles burning. Put a pin in that for me, will ya? We cut to him flipping through some more. We get a glimpse of a map. Could be a map of Gondor, since I believe to read the word Osgiliath there, right on the river. But I don't see Minas Tirith or Minas Anor, so yeah, I could be wrong with that one. But it would make sense since we are in the Gondorian archives. And then, as Gandalf takes a sip from his tankard, he halts for a moment. The music comes to a high halt, and we begin to hear his voice in his head as he reads the page before him. He reads that it's the year 3434 of the Second Age and how Isildur found the Ring of Power. We switch position again and see the stacks that Gandalf has accumulated over time of his research. Parchments and books are rising like 2 towers around him. Get it? It's 2 towers. Then we cut back to the scene where Isildur had cut off the ring of Sauron's hand, and then we read something that Isildur probably has written himself in Gandalf's voice. "It has come to me, the One Ring. It shall be an heirloom to my kingdom. All of my bloodline shall be bound to the ring, for I will risk no hurt to the ring. It is precious to me, though I bide with a great pain." He doesn't say it like that, but I'm not Gandalf, I'm not Ian McKellen, okay? Then we cut back to Gandalf and see the candles to the left of the screen have burned down almost entirely. So he has been here reading this record of Isildur for ages. He started when the candles were pretty much newly lit, and now, only a few paragraphs down, the candles are almost gone, which, again, it's a clever use of time progression, because in the beginning it's pretty new, and now a lot of time has passed. But why has so much time passed? Because what he read was very little, right? Maybe Isildur had horrible penmanship, but that's not true, because we will see the writing, and it's very beautiful and very nice to read. Maybe Gandalf has dyslexia? He had to reread everything 3 times. I mean, it's okay, Gandalf. We love you. You and your inability to read texts quickly. The price, which Isildur mentions here, is the death of his father. We remember Elendil had died only moments before Isildur had cut off the ring, though in the books Isildur had also lost his brother Anarion during that battle. But his brother doesn't exist in the movie, so it's only Elendil here. We then cut back to Isildur holding the ring, and it shrinks down quickly. Sauron was a big guy and had big guy hands. Naturally, the ring was forged to be fitting to his hand, so it was big. But now, in the hands of a normal hand-sized man, it shrinks to accommodate that size better. Why the ring does this is anyone's guess. Mine is that it wants to be worn to corrupt the bearer even more, and that's much easier to do if it's snugly on your finger. But that makes me wonder if the ring does this each time it switches bearers. Does it just know the perfect ring size for everyone? And what if the person would put it on the pinky and not the index finger, as everybody just does? Would it shrink while being slipped on? It never does this in the books. Well, I can't remember ever reading a passage saying, "And then the ring of power shrank to fit snugly on Frodo's finger." Yeah, it never does this. Also, fun fact, in German the words Ring of Power were translated to Ring der Macht, although power directly translated means Kraft, and the English word might fits the word Macht much more. I believe they did that because the word Macht is often associated with negative traits like domination and suppression, which are things Sauron wants to do. The word Kraft is often connected to more positive traits, like withstanding hard times or being able to bounce back from things. Yeah, I thought I'd let you know. Some translation knowledge for you, with all the other random knowledge that you will not need. Isildur turns the ring as the markings fade away, and we can see his face in the reflection, which is a nice little detail. And it shows that the ring is dirt repellent, because nothing of the dirt and grime of Isildur's glove got onto that thing. Like, it is clean, like fresh out of the factory. It is sparkly and beautiful. We cut back to Gandalf reading the parchment, and we now see the clear and a beautiful penmanship on that parchment. At the end, we can read "great pain" being the thing he said earlier. We also read the line of "it is precious to me," probably that's how it goes, a line above. Below that paragraph, we see the fine lines of the engravings of the ring. You'd wonder how Isildur would remember all those details of such fine lines, but the next paragraph reveals how he noted them down. Gandalf reads that the lines were first clearly visible, like a bright flame, but over time they vanished, and now it's a secret only fire can tell. Ah, fire! Make it hot. Got it. But then again, it makes me question how Isildur figured that out himself. Like, okay, it was visible like a flame. Probably a flame will reveal it. If he was so preoccupied with keeping the ring safe, I doubt that he would just chuck it into fire. I don't think he would. But then again, he would know that the ring is indestructible. So, who knows? We zoom onto Gandalf's face and he seems to have an idea. Well, he better hurry, because things are getting dark and dangerous in the Shire. We cut away to someone chopping wood, and then we move a little behind the man and we see a dog. Oh, look at you, he's a good boy. Yes, you are. You're a good boy, he's a good dog. From the looks of this cute puppy, it could be a New Zealand Huntaway, a large and strong built breed used for sheep herding. The breed dates back to the late 19th century. As the name suggests, they are home to New Zealand. According to Wikipedia, it's the second most common dog breed registered in New Zealand, only topped by the Labrador Retrievers. Since we are looking at what looks like a farmer, it makes sense to have such a breed around, for herding the sheep and all other farming duties that you need a dog for. The dog begins to bark and we cut further away and see a hobbit hole. So this is a hobbit farmer that is chopping some wood, probably for his fireplace, for some tea later, or just general warmth because, it's night. He is never named in the movies, but this is Farmer Maggot, played by Cameron Rhodes. Farmer Maggot sounds like a really mean name and like a mean dude, but he really isn't. He's also known as Goodman Maggot, has 3 dogs named Gripfang and Wolf. So this one here might be one of those, but I only see one. Or maybe they fuse them all together. They tend to do that in movies, right? So this would be Wolfgripfang. Sounds like a Pokemon. Pretty cool. In the books, he serves Frodo and his hobbit friends some dinner after they trespassed his farm. Pretty nice of him. And he tells them of a strange man who wanted to know where the Baggins lived. Maggot didn't say anything, as the good man he is, and the strange man left. Unlike his movie counterpart as we see now, a dark shadow is creeping over the hobbit house. Farmer Maggot drops his axe in stupor. Something terrible is coming. Wolfgripfang is barking and barking. We see the farmer's fearful face, and he takes a few steps back closer to his house. We then cut to metal gloves, spiky and sharp, holding the reins of a black horse. We see the horseshoe dripping with dark blood, as if they had run over something, or someone, just recently. Wolfgripfang winces in fear, tries to stand up, but he's too afraid and he waddles backward into the hobbit house. Oh, poor baby, yes, go inside, be safe, save yourself. Then we see the rider, and it's a faceless man with a dark hood. He seems to be made of a dark cloak because you can see nothing else. The only other thing we see on the bottom right of the screen is a pommel of a sword. The pommel looks like black metal and like you'd get all types of tetanus if you cut yourself on the thing. In a high hiss-like voice, he says, "Shire Baggins." I'm sorry, I just had to do something. You can't just say, oh, he said Shire and Baggins in a hiss-like voice. Like, that's just so cool. It's always. I love that. Farmer Maggot replies that there are no Bagginses here, and that they're all up in Hobbiton, and when the horse seems to show signs of impatience, he promptly points them into the direction of Hobbiton before he slides back into his house and begins to close the door. The rider goes off, and we can see with the shadows of other riders that several are following him. Wow! Great job, Farmer Maggot. You're such a good man, pointing the dark and clearly evil and deadly riders towards a pretty famous and well-liked hobbit. Good of you. Good man, Maggot. We cut to a place close to Hobbiton, with the music cutting out as we look onto the small hamlet of hobbit living. We see the stone bridge Gandalf had crossed in the beginning of the movie. We see the clear and beautiful water, the river called Water. It's not confusing at all. And light is pouring out of the buildings, and smoke is rising from the chimneys. Ah, what a nice and lovely scene that totally isn't in any mortal peril anytime soon, thanks to some particular farmer. We hear laughter from somewhere, and then singing, and we cut to an interior. And what else should we see first than food? Cheese and meat, to be exact. We are of course in the Green Dragon Inn, a popular inn close to Hobbiton, where Frodo and co spend a lot of their free time. In the middle of the screen, we see a pillar with engraved grapes and vines going around it. It's very pretty looking. Frodo is picking up some drinks for himself and his friends from Rosie, all the while both Merry and Pippin are singing a song with drinks in hand. We move with Frodo and see the 2 other hobbits on top of a table. Merry is wearing a bright yellow vest, while Pippin wears a more neutral brown one, but it probably is of a very fine quality, since he is a Took after all, and they have money. We see to the right of the screen another pillar of the Green Dragon, and it's engraved with nicely painted wheats, and further back there is also something that looks like an artistic version of the tree. But I have yet to see anything dragon-related. Dragon Inn. Where is the dragon? I need some dragons, okay? At least there's a lot of green here, so, half of it checks out. The song the hobbits sing goes as follows. Hey-ho, to the bottle I go. to heal my heart and drown my woe. Rain may fall and wind may blow, but there'll still be many miles to go. Sweet is the sound of the pouring rain in the stream that falls from hill to plain. Better than rain and Grippling brook is a muck of beer inside this tug. I'm really sorry that you had to witness this, but come on, you cannot ask me to not sing this, please. Oh, come on, have a heart, please. For me? This is a really nice movie adaptation to the song in the book. You see, in the book, this song comes later, after the hobbits had already left the Shire. Its lyrics also go a little different. And don't worry, this time I will not sing it. Ho ho ho, to the bottle I go, to heal my heart and drown my woe. Rain may fall and wind may blow, and many miles be still to go. But under a tall tree I will lie, and let the clouds go sailing by. I like both versions, and they lend themselves great for each medium you find them in. In the books, it's more something they sing as they miss home and the comfort of the inn. Here it is, well, a bar song you sing with friends at a party to have a good time and drown your woe. As the hobbits sing, we cut around them and see Frodo jump around their table as he sings along. Other patrons of the inn are also singing along, and it's a nice vibe. Everybody has fun, and all seem to be in high spirits. High might be the key word here. Also, Frodo, please don't jump too much. You got drinks in your hand, and I don't see a lid. Please, it's gonna be such a mess for Rosie to clean. Please, just don't jump too much, okay? We cut to the rough and hairy feet of the hobbits as they stomp on the table and... Ew! Guys, we eat on tables, and you never wear shoes! Please, someone tell me they wiped the surface with everything they got. Please, Rosie, tell me, you got some table fixer-upper spray. Please. However, there is a small detail I would like to mention, because of course there is. You can see, left to the candle burning, a pipe placed in a small tray. And a little down to the left of the candle, we see another pipe. These probably belong to Merry and Pippin, and they've put them there to do their unhygienic dance of tomfoolery. A nice little detail, because, you know, the hobbits that are on the table have to put down their pipes because you can't really dance, sing, and smoke your weed. I mean, technically you can, but you also want to drink, so that's just a lot of things to do at the same time. So I can understand why they put the pipes down. We cut to Pippin as he finishes the song, and everybody bursts out laughing, because, you know, a mug inside this tug. He is a tug. He is the tug in question with the beer inside. That's the joke. We move a little away from them and see how the two hobbits attempt to come off the table, but we never see how they manage it because we focus on two elder hobbits that are smoking their pipes, complaining about some strange folk passing the Shire. The hobbit on the right side of the screen is the old Gaffer, aka Sam's dad. I think this is the only time we ever see him in the entire trilogy. His full name, by the way, is Hamfast Gamgee. He is portrayed by the New Zealand actor Norman Forsay. The old Gaffer had been a gardener to the Baggins for quite some time, and he was the guy when it came to potatoes. Yes, you had right. The potatoes! Next to him is the hobbit Old Noakes, a gossip king who loves to talk about things that should not matter to him at all. For example, in the books, he talks about how Frodo's father died and how it was probably due to his weight. Again, I remind you, Frodo's father drowned. So that's really nice of you, Old Noakes. You'll find those types of people everywhere, even in the cozy Shire of Middle-earth. Old Noakes was portrayed by William Johnson, which is the most basic-ass English name I have heard in a while. We then take position behind Old Gaffer and Old Noakes and see Sam opposite to his father and another hobbit next to him, and they are all smoking their pipes. And I have to mention it now, because whenever do I get a chance, there are pipes everywhere throughout the trilogy and the books mentioned all the time. Reasons for that was Tolkien's own love and near obsession with the things, so he admitted that himself. And I have to admit, it is the much more fun way to smoke. But again, it's still not healthy for you, so I do not recommend it. According to Fumachick.com, the first tobacco pipes found in Europe from around 500 BC were made of wooden stems or reed. Nomadic Indo-Europeans, the Scythians, used them to inhale the smoke from campfires. In turn, Greeks and Romans adopted the tobacco pipe as well as Germanic peoples and Celtic tribes who used them to smoke all sorts of herbs, and particularly the leaves from linden trees. However, tobacco as we know it today and the culture that surrounds it come from America. The indigenous people cultivated a plant for medical treatments, but also to smoke it through their pipes. And once the colonies came, they took one look at that and thought, "Ooh, now that seems fun," and quickly adopted that fun activity for their own recreational reasons. That to pipes and smoking them. The hobbit next to Sam is Ted Sandyman, who, like Old Noakes, loves to gossip about stuff that really shouldn't be his business. He's the son of a miller, and in the books he's kind of an ass, making fun of Sam for being sad that the elves are leaving Middle-earth and calling both Bilbo and Frodo cracked. Ted is played by Brian Sargent, who later voiced some spiders in the Hobbit trilogy in the years to come. Anyway, Old Noakes talks that dwarves and other lesser savoury nature people have been seen crossing the Shire. We see Noakes is a dwarf sympathizer, alright, and he cares not for elves at all. But I do wonder, where did you see dwarves? I would understand elves or even the rangers of the Dunedain because, you kind of somewhat pass the area to get either to the Grey Havens if you're an elf, or scout because you're a ranger. But dwarves? How and where, Old Noakes? Old Gaffer comments with "war is brewing" and adds that the mountains have been teeming with goblins. As Gaffer says this, Sam looks up and we cut to Rosie as she cleans some mugs. She looks our direction, which means right at Sam, since we have his POV, and she gives us a gentle and bright smile. We cut back to Sam, who feels spotted, because you have, my friend, you have been spotted. And he shyly looks down. What is he thinking? Will Gaffer and Ted fight? Why did everybody stop singing? Do the hobbits only have one pub song? And where is Gandalf? Well, all those questions might get answered in the next episode, because we have reached the end of this episode, and I hope you enjoyed. I had a lot of fun working on this section of the film, maybe you can tell. There was so much to talk about, because we changed location very often and quickly, and that allowed me to really dig deep into practical aspects and of buildings and bigatures. That was a lot of fun. I'm always so positively surprised when I learn something new or am reminded of an old memory when it comes to this film. It gives me a whole new appreciation for all the work that has been put into this piece of art, and I hope it does for you too. I wish you good days whenever you listen to this, and that you were able to just vibe or do some chores while I was rambling in the background like a friend that wouldn't shut up. We'll catch each other next time on a new episode of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring podcast. Take care.